Hello everyone, welcome back to Age of Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar. In today's video we're going to look at the Deadwalkers from the Death Grand Alliance. First off, we're going to look at the overall lore of the faction. Across the realms, wizards harness the dark sorceries of death to animate the fallen. Deadwalkers are teeming herds of mindless warriors and rotting hunting packs, given the repulsive gift of unlife by necromantic magic, so that they might become a blight upon the lands and kingdoms of the living. When the realm of death came into being, it is said the other mortal realms shuddered and screamed to have so much death magic unleashed upon them. Even the glow of Azir's stars dimmed for a moment, and the firmament shook as the chill gale from Shyish pushed through the realms. In the aftermath of this terrible event, rotting corpses across the length and width of the realms stirred from their muddy graves and gore-soaked battlefields. These were the first Deadwalkers. Little more than mindless beasts of death, they staggered through the ruins walked by war, adding misery and misfortune to empires and continents already suffering under sword and flame. Relentlessly, the Deadwalkers grew in number until not even the remotest parts of the mortal realms could boast freedom from their rotting grasp. Now, in the aftermath of the Age of Chaos, they are but another horror among an age of blood and darkness. By far, the largest part of the Deadwalkers are the zombies. Their ranks mostly comprise of the once free peoples of the realms, slain and savaged by wars uncounted, then risen once more to life to tear at their former kin. Among these damned souls also shambled the enemies of these vanquished peoples. The Deadwalkers do not distinguish from where their numbers come, and even once proud servants of chaos fill out the decaying ranks of these undead warriors. By some unspoken and unknown command, the zombies gather groaning and moaning for the chance to sink their teeth into the living's flesh. Soon, hordes of these shambling dead things spread out across the lands. Where they meet living armies, they drown soldiers in clawing hands and rancid flesh, each fallen enemy soon getting unsteadily to their feet to join the dead's ranks. Many of the Lords of Chaos, who lay claim to the realms, take pleasure in seeing the slain bring further destruction to their own lands and former brethren. But the followers of the Dark Gods also suffer at the hands of the Deadwalkers, and more than one overly arrogant general marches mindlessly in the undead armies as a result of his arrogance. Then there are the beasts turned by Nagash's dark magic in sprawling wilds across the realms, countless decaying predators crawl from the earth to continue the hunt. Most common of these are the dire wolves, the decaying remains of savage beast packs, no less vicious for being undead. They hunt the night, their glowing red eyes dancing in the darkness. Driven by a spark of predatory intelligence, they run their prey to the ground, relentlessly pursuing them across the vast stretches of wilderness and ruin. Where a living hunter would tire or might lose the scent, direwolves have both the patience of the dead and the ability to hear a beating heart from leagues away. Enemies soon learn that as the wolves get closer, the options are simple: fight or die. The Deadwalkers have bolstered the arms of Shyish in countless wars across all the realms. Soulblight lords use them as fodder for their merciless assaults on the living and their rivals, while death-rattled kings supplement their skeletal infantry with ranks of these rotting warriors, tolerating their disordered ranks in order to crush their foes. Death mages, too, favour the Deadwalkers as foot soldiers. For all of the undead, they are the most numerous and easy to control. Some dark sorcerers construct corpse-cart, rickety wagons drawn by the dead and infused with necromancy. Their attendant corpse master ride these vile chariots into battle, eager to drown their foes in the undead and add to their master's ever-growing legions. Now that you have a basic understanding of the Deadwalkers, we are now going to look at the individual units, starting with the zombies. Zombies are simple corpses raised by a necromancer to be used against the enemy as simple infantry. The weapons of these unliving warriors diverse extremely, for any whom that have died on the field of battle are instantly amongst their ranks. Some might have been recently slain knights with magnificent weapons and armour, while others may consist of simple peasants with rusted pitchforks and kitchen knives, whatever their origins, these unliving are still used extensively by the Lords of Death. Right, zombies are one of the most basic units in the game. They have a terrible stat line as they've got a 4-inch movement, no save as it's a save of dash, bravery 10, which is, that's good, that's probably the best part about them, and then 1 wound. Okay, and they've only got 1 attack, which is the zombie bite. So it has range of 1, it has 1 attack, well, you need to get a 6 to hit with this weapon, so already you're against the odds. And then you need to get a 6 to wound, and it has no rend and only cause 1 damage. So looking at the stat line straight away, you can see that zombies appear to be quite shit, to be honest. But it's about their abilities where they actually have a use and a purpose. Okay, so they have a standard bearer. And like I've said in the Death Rattle videos, standard bearers for Death armies are amazing. I think they're the best ones in the game. So this will be the same as the Skeleton Warriors, so we'll dive into it. So standard bearer, models in this unit may be standard bearers. You can return D6 slain models to this unit in your hero phase if it includes any standard bearers. So again, you can have more than 1, so take as many as you can. The next special model is a noisemaker. Models in this unit may be noisemakers. A unit that includes any noisemakers can always move up to 6 inches when it charges unless the charge rolls higher. So it's like all the other horn blowers in Death. Being able to automatically charge 6 inches is really good, especially with how slow this unit is again. You can take as many of these models as you want in this unit, so take the most you can to ensure there's always a noisemaker in there. Okay, their abilities. Now, this ability, titled Dragged Down and Torn Apart, is what redeems the zombies and which really helps to improve that absolutely diabolically shit stat line that they have. Okay, so Dragged Down and Torn Apart. You can add 1 to hit and wound rolls for a unit of zombies if it has 10 or more models. You can add 2 if it has 20 more models, or you can add 3 if it has 30 or more models. So this ability automatically greatly improves that stat line. To be honest, it flips it on its head in a good way. So now, if you have 30 or more in a unit, which you are going to, there's no point really taking less than that, you get to add 3 to your hit and wound roll. So you're no longer hitting and wounding on a 6, you're now hitting and wounding on a 3, which puts them above most standard infantry. I think pretty much for every standard infantry, because even the Skeleton Warriors we were talking about, they hit on a 4 and wound on a 4 at best. So the zombies outsuppress them in the hit to wounding characteristic. Okay, and then the next ability is a very narrative one. It's called the Newly Dead. At the end of a combat phase, roll a dice for each model slain by this unit. For each roll of a 6 or more, one of their victims returns to unlife and joins the shambling hordes. Add a zombie to this unit. So like I say, it's very narrative. It's the whole sort of zombie infection that's hard to contain, and it's just sweeping across the enemy units. It's a nice way to regenerate models to this unit on a 6. Yeah, so it's quite hard to get off. It's not guaranteed in any stretch of the imagination. But with this unit, like I said, if you take 30 or more, which I suggest taking, to be honest, 40 is a good number for this unit. If you've got 40 zombies in this unit, and they go up against a standard enemy infantry unit with a 4-up save at best, probably a 5-up save, the zombies will chew through quite a lot of them in one turn. So you're more than likely going to be bringing back zombies from this ability. This ability also times in nicely with the standard bearer, because that's obviously your main way you're bringing back models to this unit. So the Newly Dead ability is just a nice way to add a couple of zombies every so often. Okay, the Shambling Horde. This is, some people say it's their best ability, but I say it's their second best. It's very helpful. So, Shambling Hordes. If 2 or more units of zombies from your army are within 1 inch of each other in your hero phase, you can merge and that unit can become a single unit for the rest of the battle. So, this means if you have, let's say you're playing a match play game where you need 3 battle line units, zombies are battle line for the entirety of Death, so you could have 3 units of 10. If you really want to cut down the cost in your battle line, just have, like I say, 3 units of 10 zombies. They're 60 points of 10, so that's only costing you 180 points. Now, like I was saying, having a unit of 10 zombies is really quite pointless. But with this ability, if you have them all within range in your first hero phase, which you will because you get to deploy where they go, you can make those 3 units of 10 become a unit of 30. Now, that unit has suddenly become much more durable, much more combat offensive, and has become a bigger problem for your enemy to deal with. So that is a very nice ability there. And then you've got Vigor Mortis, so you can add 1 to all hit rolls for this unit if it is within 9 inches of any corpse cut from your army when it attacks. So if you're taking a large unit of these, they're already hitting on a 3. Now they've got +1 to that, so they're hitting on a 2. So this is a unit that's hitting on a 2, wounded on a 3, and you'll be chucking buckets of attacks to the enemy. So with that sort of stats, you're going to be making the enemy do a lot of save rolls. It's that old saying, you throw enough shit at the wall, some of it is going to stick. And that's very much true with these zombies. Okay, and then you've got the magic, which is again very similar to all death units, to be honest. Well, most of them anyway, the ones you can summon. So death wizards know the raise zombie spell. So raise zombie has casting value of only 4, which is incredibly low. If you're successfully cast, you can set up a unit of up to 10 zombies within 18 inches of the caster and 9 inches away from the enemy. The unit is added to your army but cannot move in the following movement phase. I believe that's the same for every summoning. There might be a couple things out there that can move as well, but generally, if you set them up, if they've been summoned, then they can't move that phase. If the result of the cast and roll was 8 or more, so again, just slightly above the average, you can set up a unit of 20 zombies instead. So that's nice for you to be able to plot them on an objective. Again, if you try and summon 20 and you only get a 4, then you only summon 10 zombies and you think, oh, that's just a terrible little unit, it's not going to achieve much. Remember, if you have an other zombie unit nearby within 1 inch, it can join that unit and have a much better part to play in your army. The next unit is Dire Wolves. The mortal realms are plagued by these giant wolves. Men, Duodin and elves hunt these beasts mercilessly. But this is not always enough. The carcasses of these wolves are buried in great pits, but the cursed earth does not allow them to rest easy. Dire wolves are the arisen corpses of giant wolves that were brought back to life to serve the will of a necromancer. Like in their former life, these dire wolves serve as horrific pack animals that hunt the enemies of his master like the hounds of the living. Right in game, dire wolves have a 10-inch move, a 5+ save, bravery 10 and 2 wounds. They have 1 melee weapon, which is named Rotting Fangs and Claws. It's a range of 1, it's got 2 attacks, force to hit, force to wound, no rend and 1 damage. So yeah, that's a pretty nice stat line we've got there, especially for quite a basic unit like this. The description: a unit of dire wolves has 5 or more models. They savage their terrified prey with rotting fangs and claws. The leader of the unit is a Doom Wolf, which is probably the most scariest name they could have came up with. A Doom Wolf makes 3 attacks rather than 2. Their abilities: Slavering Charge? Slavering Charge? I probably can't read. So you can add 1 to wound rolls for this unit if it made a charge move in the same turn. So that if they have just made a charge move and they're attacking, they get +1 to wound. So now they've got 2 attacks, hitting on a 4, wounding on a 3, no rend, 1 damage, which is nice, will help a lot, will get a lot more attacks through. And then the next ability is the Vigor Necrus. So you can add 1 to all save rolls for this unit whilst it is within 9 inches of any corpse cut from your army. So adding 1 to your save, so they've got a 4-up save now, which probably on average they've got a better save than Black Knights, like we looked at in the other video, which is fantastic because we're not going to get too much into points, but just for a quick note, these guys cost 60 points for 5 models, whilst Black Knights are 120 points for 5 models. So these are half the price. They've got the same amount of wounds, they've got the same save. It's more easy to modify to constantly always get that 4 up. And they've got a movement of 10, which is 2 inches slower than the Black Knights, but it's only 2 inches. So liking these guys a lot, and to be honest, their attacks, I prefer them more than the... It is situational, but I do prefer them more than Black Knights. It's a more constant damage output. Okay, so that's their abilities. And then magic, again, it's like the same of all summoning. So if you've got a wizard with a death and the wizard keyword, they can summon dire wolves. So summon dire wolves has a casting value of 5. If successfully cast, you can set up a unit of up to 5 dire wolves within 18 inches of the caster and more than 9 inches away from the enemy. The unit is added to your army but cannot move in the following movement phase like we've seen before with the zombies. If the casting roll was 10 or more, set up a unit of up to 10 dire wolves instead, and that's very nice because dire wolves, like I say, they can't move in the turn that they are set up, but in the next turn they can move, and as these are quite fast, as we've established, they move 10 inches. Even if you don't want to get to combat, you just want them to go and catch an objective in your enemy's backfield. If you manage to summon them, and then in your following turn, they can move a minimum of 10 inches. If you make them run, you know there's a chance of them going 16. They've got 2 wins a pot and a 5 up save. They're fairly survivable, especially for death units, and it's a nice little cheap skirmish unit to hunt down objectives and things like archers and light cavalry. So yeah, I do like this unit. It's probably the unit that's most commonly used outside of Deadwalkers' army, because these make great allies to add into things like Flesh-Eater Court armies, Death Rattle armies is very nice, because they do the same job as, like I was saying, the Black Knights, but they do a better job for how much points they cost. And they're great for elite armies for like Soul Blight and my Flesh-Eater Court army, which is traditionally meant to be a horde army, but it's only got 22 models. So it's a great army. It consists of just flares. We'll talk about it in another video. But the trouble I have there is a model count, because I can devastate the enemy's army with my combat, but the lack of models I have just really makes it hard for me to keep objectives and to be able to hold them and secure them. Whilst if I was to ally in some dire wolves for very cheap, 5 models, like I say, 2 wins each for 60 points for 5, it can be a great help just to have 5 of these in my backfield. They can sit on objective. If they need to run to deal with enemy flank, they can quickly get over there to deal with that situation. As they're not bad fighters, especially for essentially reanimated wolves. So yeah, dire wolves, they're a great shout. I like them. And they're also a good option for a battle line, as dire wolves are battle line for any army in the Death Grand Alliance. And what they add is a nice element of speed, because death armies are traditionally quite slow, especially like we've been saying with your slow moving zombies and slow moving skeletons. A traditional battle line, having dire wolves to fill in one of your slots, it's a very nice way of doing it, and it's also quite a cheap way of doing it, because like I was saying, they are only 60 points, which is cheaper than a unit of 10 skeletons, and it's the same price as a unit of 10 zombies. But unlike zombies, these can move a lot faster, they've got a save, and they've got 2 wounds a model. And that is why I think dire wolves are a great option for your battle line in your death armies. Now moving on to the last unit in the Deadwalkers army, that of course being the corpse carts. Corpse carts are large rotting carts that are used to extract a large influx of dark magic from the surrounding land. When dark magic becomes thick within the air, corpse carts are used to send shockwaves of dark magic rippling across the battlefield, allowing recently slain to be drawn back together and once more fight at their side. Between the trudging crowds of zombies and packs of dire wolves can be seen the disgusting corpse carts, driven by macabre shrouded figures. Okay, in game the corpse cart, which is very much going to be your supportive model for your Deadwalkers units. It greatly improves both the varieties, the zombies and the direwolves. So let's have a look at its stat line. It only has a 4-inch move, has a 6+ save, and has a 10 bravery and 6 wounds. So the best thing there probably being the 6 wounds on 10 bravery, but to be honest, bravery's not really going to come in too much of effect because it's a single model, and 6 wounds for a model this size is fairly standard. Its attacks, now you have the choice of a Corpse Master's Goud or a Corpse Master's Lash. So the Corpse Master Goud has a range of 2 inches, 2 attacks, force to hit, force to wound, no rend and 1 damage. Whilst the Corpse Master Lash has a range of only 1, has 3 attacks, force to hit, force to wound, no rend, 1 damage. So the trade-off between those two is the Goud gives you an extra 1-inch range, and then the Lash obviously gives you 1 extra attack. So it's up to you to choose what you would prefer. You could maybe have the Goud as 2-inch range would let you be able to put this corpse cart behind a rank of zombies in front of him, so your Corpse Master can attack in combat and in most cases not be attacked back because he's 2 inches away from the enemy unit that he's attacking. But on the other hand, you don't really want to be getting this guy into combat at all, so I would probably give him the Corpse Master Lash, so in case he had to be in combat, if he got charged, let's say, at least he's got 3 attacks. And then his other weapon is the Zombie Horde, which has a 1-inch range, 2d6 attacks, has a 5 to hit, 5 to wound, no rend, 1 damage. So it is literally just the 4 zombies at the front of the cart doing their attacks. So for a support model, I mean, it's not awful, the stat line, obviously it's nothing particularly good, but it's a support model. You don't want to get this into combat. You've got combat units in the Death Army, you've got many of them, and this is not one of them. Okay, so let's look at the description. A corpse cart is a single model. It is controlled by a corpse master armed with either a wicked goud or a cruel lash, and dragged into battle by a shambling zombie horde. Some corpse masters also carry a crypt sword. Mounted on the back of a corpse cart is either a balefire brazier or an unholy lordstone. Okay, its abilities. So a balefire brazier, your opponent must subtract 1 from casting rolls for wizards in his army that are within 18 inches of a corpse cart with the balefire braziers. Yeah, that's nice. Anything that makes your opponent worse off is better, especially as they won't be planning for something like this to be affecting them. So -1 to their wizards, yeah, it could be good, especially if you're going against magic heavy armies, such as, well, Death is another one, but mainly things like Zeech and stuff, as they are just so magic orientated. And to be honest, even with a -1 to them, I don't know if this will stop them, but it's better than nothing. So there we go, so that's quite a nice nifty little ability that. Okay, the other one you can have instead though is the Unholy Lodestone, which I do prefer. So it allows you to add 1 to casting rolls for death wizards from your army that are within 18 inches of the corpse cart with an Unholy Lodestone. Now the reason I prefer this one is because death armies are very magic orientated. They're not. They don't use it offensively, they use it supportively. You have great defensive spells and, like I say, supportive spells, which can really buff up your units to max out their efficiency. So being able to add 1 to your casting rolls within 18 inches of him, so that's easy enough for you to make sure you're within 18 inches of him, is great if you're using it for summoning or if you're using it for just things like Mystic Shield and Arcane Bolt, just getting that extra +1 to make sure that if you don't guarantee the roll, you've given yourself the best chance. So yeah, that's a very nice ability. I thought about taking this guy into armies that don't really involve any Deadwalkers, but just for the +1 to cast, because it could be that useful. But anyway, so they are the two best things about this corpse cart. Obviously you only get one and the choice is yours. But let's look at its last ability, the Crypt Sword. Instead of attacking with his Gouda Lash in the combat phase, a Corpse Master with a Crypt Sword can attempt to stab it through his victim's soul. If he does so, pick an enemy model within 1 inch and roll a single dice. On a 6, the cursed blade finds its mark and the target suffers a mortal wound. Now this ability is... it's a bit, you know, it almost feels like it's pointless, because to be able to do it, first of all, you have to give up one of your attacks, which is either, like we said, the Goud, which is 2 inch with the 2 attacks, a Lash, which is 1 inch with 3 attacks. You'd be giving that up just to do a mortal wound on a 6. Now, I'd say 9 out of 10 times it's not worth doing this ability. The only time I would say is there are things out there, such as a lot of the Stormcast units, where your opponent can make them have a 2-up save re-rolled in 1s. So it's so hard to get through that armour that you need mortal wounds. So if you're in that situation where you're fighting one of those units, your normal attacks, if they don't have rend, are going to do diddly squat to them. So by having the chance of doing one mortal wound to them, it's better than nothing. It's a nifty, very situational ability. You know, it's free, so why not? Exactly. So that's the Corpse Cart. So it's a very supportive model. It greatly enhances the Deadwalker units, being the zombies and the direwolves, and like I said, it greatly helps most death armies just by giving them the +1 to the casting rolls. Might sound like a small thing, but just having that +1 makes things so much easier, especially like we've been talking about if you want to try and summon a large block of zombies and you need to get 8 or more to cast. Now that is just above the average to cast on 2 dice, because obviously the average on 2 d6s is 7. So we're getting +1 to that. Now you're summoning all those zombies on a 7 rather than an 8. So now that means that you need to roll the average. So it makes it just that much more easier to do, and also to cast those more nastier spells there are out there. Like there are some offensive spells out there what Death does have with a high casting value. So being able to have +1 to it just makes things so much nicer. Or if you prefer the -1 to your enemies casting, which again might sound like a tiny thing, but it could really annoy your enemies so much, just that, because a lot of time you cast spells you only just get it, so just having that subtract 1 and being able to remind your opponent that actually they don't get that spell off, it can be really quite funny, because they'll bring a Pacific Wizard just to do 1 spell, and strangely enough you can deny them quite a few times with this ability. But so yeah, that's the Corpse Cart. What we do not get it in combat because it will not survive a turn. It has a very, very slow movement, but because it's got such a large range on its ability for its Balefire Brazier and its Unholy Lordstone, you don't really need it to move too far, and also it can run, so don't forget that. So you're looking, because you're never going to be charging this in the combat, so looking at it as it's always going to be running. So it's got a 4-inch move plus d6 for its run. And being only 80 points, this is a great addition to any Death army. That is all the Deadwalker units. Being a Death army, there's no surprise that it only has 3 different units in total within its faction. But with a Death Battle Tome on the horizon, you know, who knows, there might even be new units for it, or maybe an update for the zombie kit, as it is quite old now, so it would be quite nice to have a few new models available. But anyway, that aside, they make great additions to Death Grand Alliance army and allies as well, to, like I was saying, more elite sort of armies, but they don't have the option like Soulblight. They don't have anything like 10 zombies in their own fraction. So being able to ally like 10 zombies in, or like I was saying with the direwolves, can be a huge deal for you to be able to hold those objectives. But and looking at these units, yes, at first they do appear to be quite weak, but I haven't wanted to talk about points so much, but bearing points in mind with these sorts of units is that they are incredibly cheap, and especially how with the zombies and direballs. If you take the maximum amount of them, you get a discount off the points as well. I probably will talk about points more in another video, but I'm glad I got this one out there about the Deadwalkers, because there is, I don't want to say there's no content out there about Deadwalkers on things like YouTube, but it very much feels that way, as they are very sort of, they feel like a very small part of Age of Sigmar. Like, you know, how often do you see them? You rarely see them, because they're not a full army for a small point game maybe. So I just wanted to give them an extra bit of attention, just to shed a light on what is actually quite an interesting faction. In the next video, I'm going to be looking at the Death Mages, which may look like a tiny fraction, which is one of the smallest ones in Death, I believe. I'm going to be looking at their lore and how they are a key, vital pillar in any Death army. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please like and subscribe and put a comment down below. All this really helps me put out more videos up here and to help spread the community that we all do enjoy. So thank you all for watching, and until next time, remember, Nagash is all and all is one in Nagash.